It's high noon here in the East. A little earlier, where my next guest is from, out there in British Columbia. I have with us Kelly Marciniw. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are.
That's right. Kelly is with Pan-Abode International. Again, they're based out of Surrey, BC. That's British Columbia. Kelly's been in the company itself's been around for 72 years. So they have a ton of experience. They build homes all over the country, all over the world, really. And you can see in her background there, that's the type of home that they work with. There you go. Beautiful display, I must say. A little warmer than my background, but you know. So today's talk is going to be a good one, I think. It's something that we deal with a lot in this industry. Most of the job sites, I sound like a broken record, but we talk about these things all the time. The job sites that we normally see are not nice level lots in a meadow with no trees. They're usually way back in the woods, on the side of a mountain, on a lake. Access can sometimes be difficult, and sometimes they can be even remote. So this topic is remote and challenging build sites made easier. And Kelly's going to bring a little bit of that expertise into what you can think about. And really, again, we always talk about budgets in this world of building a custom home. All these things need to be budget conscious with as well. But you're going to talk about what you can do to make it a little easier on that remote build site. Kelly, go right ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, and actually I have budget as one of those topics to discuss, because sometimes a great deal on land can end up being a big blowout on other parts of your budget with it. So always something to consider there. So let's start with logistics of it. So getting to your site, I think what Eric talked about is people love these, homes that are on these beautiful vistas that they get to see. Somewhere that's, even a bit challenging to get to is actually part of the appeal, being out in sort of that wilderness and being surrounded by nature is part of that. So getting to your site, whether you're, showing up normally on car or bike or even walking in, is great when you're just visiting it. However, when you're actually bringing all the building materials to that site, it can be, an additional challenge for it. So one of the first things I would say is start to think about is how you're actually getting those building materials to your site. Are you going to be bringing it by truck? Do you need to walk in the final sort of, few hundred yards to the site? Is a helicopter drop going to be, and sometimes actually more cost effective because it can be quite quick to get it into the site. And then for some of the people that are located on lakes or often islands, barges are pretty common as well. Though even sometimes with a barge, getting up on site, it's that helicopter that actually does the final sort of brings from the barge onto the land for it.
So what Kelly's got here, she's really talking about some remote sites. We're talking barges, yes, helicopters, which it happens. Up here in the Adirondacks, we can get up in the mountains and you can be 2 miles in on a narrow logging road. And when you're trying to get a semi-truck down there, it's nearly impossible. So as a role of the company representative, sometimes you probably help people out to help them understand. That's why a site visit, understanding potentially these costs up front are huge, right?
Huge. And, figuring out in your mind of how the truck's actually going to get there and, even things like cattle guards need to be taken off so the truck can actually, a little bit of wider will make that difference there. And sometimes, getting it into a smaller truck and having to do a few, different loads for that last little bit ends up being the case.
And we've done that too, or maybe there's a local lumber yard or someone the person knows or something where it's like a landing, much like a logging landing where you have to put the material somewhere. And then like what Kelly's saying, put it on a smaller vehicle and bring it up there. So it's all part of the process.
Yep.
It can be fun.
Yeah, it is. And that sort of staging and that anticipation of it coming.
It's cool.
Yeah. So I know on our side, we actually sent a ton of photos of the truck as it's leaving our yard and everything sort of packaged up. And we hear from customers, they really like that. It's like, it's like Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, this is all, building a dream home here. We're not seeking shelter. So I think it's a big deal when you're working with the types of materials that come in a log or a timber frame home. That's the whole idea here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'd say definitely talk to whoever, you're getting your home from about logistics and how they kind of manage that, as well as individual package sizes can often be adjusted. So if there's a max weight or size on your offloading equipment, making sure that that's known up front, and what are those kind of constraints. I know I worked on a project up in Alaska, and just that their site was quite small on what they could get on loading there. And we ended up having to do a different roof system because, they're just not able to get pieces as large as they needed. So we had to do a different kind of truss with it. But all stuff we were able to manage, up front, sort of knowing that. I want to maybe jump into the next sort of thing about prefabricated and talk a little bit about that,
Sure.
because obviously lots of different styles of building systems within log and timber frame homes for it. So, prefabricated has a lot of advantages for remote and challenging build sites. Less time, less crew needed to be there, often less equipment, less tools, less stuff that you actually have to haul in, and waste you need to haul out. So a lot of things to be thinking about with prefabricated for one of these challenging sites. But size of the individual pieces is something to ask about with it. So in some systems, they use really large, big panels that need a crane to come in and actually drop them in. So you can put together a house in a matter of days with it, but you need all that space and all that equipment to actually be able to do that.
Sure.
Versus some of the log systems where, yes, there's a lot more individual pieces, but each individual piece is lighter and smaller. And so you don't need heavy equipment to actually put it together and bring it onto the actual site for it.
In a lot of cases too, Kelly, those are pre-cut and numbered. So there is a kind of a set plan in place so you can stage your materials. So when it actually comes time to put them together, it's that much easier too.
So much easier. And that, talking about those remote and challenging sites, often there is that pre-staging area. So you kind of hold back some of the material, doors, windows, roofs, roof beams, things like that you'll need later on, hold them back. And then, on your actual site where you're working with things, start with, obviously your subfloor and your walls and getting those up first.
Exactly. Great point.
Another thing I would just say about remote and challenging sites is still ask about local code and building permits and stuff that sometimes people think that they're far away and it doesn't apply. And they're caught off guard when, somebody shows up and says, oh, you actually needed to have a sitting permit or a use permit, or there might be still something that you need to do there. So check those things up front.
Kind of like the tiny house movement where everybody just figured, hey, we can trailer these things anywhere and we have no issues. They soon found out that's not necessarily the case. Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah. And another one people often catch is off grid. They think no electrical permits required. And sometimes you still need to have electrical, and including potentially permits, inspections. Sometimes inspections nowadays are being done by video chat and photos rather than them actually going out to site. So just being remote doesn't necessarily, opt you out of needing to go through some of those, regulation type things. And then, budget. So budget, getting somebody out to, you get this beautiful piece of property. Sometimes being remote gets you a bit of a deal there. Sometimes our customers are dealing with financing and site utilities and so forth, and zoning, and there's a whole bunch of kind of things kind of leading up even before they start thinking about the home. And so plan for those in your budget as well as in your timeline, because sometimes these things do take a little bit of time, especially if you're in an area that's underdeveloped, is that, fire response may be limited. And so you need to actually have a lot more to be basically able to shelter in place rather than have, a fire truck showing up if there's, an issue. So all these other things need to be considered in your budget that may be different than doing like an urban or a suburban or even, rural, but closer.
Great point. Yeah. You don't think about those things. Exactly.
No, and it can eat into your budget, pretty substantially. And especially if people are, having to clear a site to get in water, all these kind of things can quickly kind of eat into your budget that you were expecting to be able to do on your home.
Well, Kelly, listen, we're getting to the end of your presentation. I want to thank you. That was a great topic. I thought really talks about a lot of questions that people have in terms of remote building. There's a lot of things to consider. And really, if you want more information, you can go back to Kelly's booth. You can video chat with Kelly just like she and I are doing right now. And she can tell you about Pan-Abode's pre-cut process and how it can help you with your remote build. And again, thank you very much.